Okay. Yeah, we should be live now. So we'll wait on Eric to join us. In the meantime, you kind of got the run of show. We traded some emails the other day. Um,
Yeah.
you've got your top five reasons. Notice who did not reply to the email was Eric. So
Yeah, there'll be a surprise. We don't know
the
what Eric's top five are.
his top five surprises, and
That's
then
right.
for those of you who've been with the show for quite some time, just in case anybody's watching this, um, I have a good old mic rant at the end. I used to open each episode with a bit of an editorial, something that was on my mind. And this has been on my mind for several weeks now, and I felt like I needed to get it off my chest. Um, so I typed up a good old quick mic rant for at the end of the show instead of the beginning. I don't want to put anybody off by having it at the beginning. And
Yeah, it's a
I'm
good idea.
fully not sure what you or Eric are going to think about this. In texting Eric prior to the show, I said, you know what? I think you're going to hate it. He said he had to leave early, so I said, um, I think you're going to hate my rant, so I want you there to hear it.
Oh,
Um,
perfect. Are you
but
going to go into old man shakes fist at cloud
get
moment?
off my freaking
Get
lawn,
off my
kids!
lawn.
Get off my Mac OS, gosh darn it!
That's it.
Um, anyway, so after we do our I haven't figured out how to do that. We talked about our top five favorite features coming to Sequoia. I don't know if we each want to do five or if we just want to kind of go through
Or
until we
probably
have
go back
talked
and
about
forth, I
five.
think. Maybe,
Just go
yeah,
back and
yeah.
forth and end up with
So,
five. I think would probably be pretty good.
I'm open for any you know any way you want to arrange it. No, yeah, no worries.
Yeah, maybe we'll do that. We'll just kind of throw ideas out there. Since he didn't get us his list, I'm gonna just throw it to Eric first. We'll just we'll make him kick things off
Oh,
with one
excellent.
of
Yeah,
his,
Eric can kick things off. Cool. Yeah.
and then
Well, yeah.
we'll
So we can each comment on each other's whatever our top fives are. Mind you, mine's almost the top six. But yeah.
well, that's okay. That's all right. We can have extras. I got my little rant then after our top five, and oh, I do have an essential app. Although this one,
Oh, I forgot all about that. Oh
you
no.
don't, you don't, you can do the pick if you want to, but I have one I've been sitting on for a few weeks now as we had
Oh,
guests on.
excellent. Because I have nothing prepared.
if you would, if you come up with something, you say, "Hey, I would really like to do the essential app pick this week," by all means. Otherwise, I have something I've been sitting on for a few weeks. I don't know if I would call it essential. It certainly is not required, and I don't know how much. Well, I'll explain it when I get to it. I don't know if it really enhances the Mac user experience quite as much as other essential apps do, but it certainly is a fun app. How about that?
Well, fun is good. Yes. Funnily enough, one of my it's not an essential app as such, but oh, hello, Eric.
There's
Hello.
Eric.
How are you?
Hello,
Sorry.
there he is.
Here I am.
So we were
Yeah, I
just
was
going through the.
oh, carry on.
Oh, go ahead, go ahead, Darren. You had started to
Oh
say
no,
something
I was just
when
going to
Eric
say
interrupted
something
us.
completely mad. One of my essential, it's not an essential app as such, like you say, yours isn't an essential app, but one of
Yeah.
mine was going to be linked to one of my top five. So that's quite a nice little, almost a professional segue, as it were.
Well, do you want to do it? I can I
Um,
can I can bin mine for.
oh no, you go with yours because I've got nothing prepared really. That's just off the cuff. So go
Okay.
for it.
All right. Well, I mean, having a link is always good.
Yeah, mine was. Oh, we're late now. Do we? Oh God, I don't know if you start. Um, Mine was going to be Air Server because although I don't use the iPhone and iPad screen sharing very much, they haven't made, well, so far as the last time I looked, this may be different now actually, but the last time I looked, the Air server software I was running isn't native to Apple Silicon. So, and it's always better if that sort of thing is part of the OS. So with iPhone mirroring and potentially iPad mirroring, although I don't know if that's also a thing, being built into the OS, that means I don't have to use Air Server anymore, and it's also native to Apple Silicon, and it makes life a whole lot easier if I switch over. And that's one of my top fives, which is the iPhone mirroring side of things. So
I think, yeah, I would think it would be iPad too. I think you would include that in there.
I'm thinking, yeah.
And you're right. I use Air Server too, and I didn't realize that it wasn't Apple Silicon. So yeah, that'll be a big deal because at some point that's not going to work.
Are you on your mic, Eric?
Yeah, can you hear me? Is it not?
I'm getting room echo.
Okay, let me.
So I was just wondering.
Echo.
Yeah, it's supposed to be the sure.
You probably are. It's just, it sounds fine. It's just there's a little bit of room. So I thought maybe you were on your mic, or I'm sorry, your Mac mic.
Yeah, you know what? It's let me just. All right, hang on a second.
No worries. While you're looking at that, we were talking about run a show briefly. There was one person who didn't send their top 5 picks for new features coming to Sequoia.
Sorry.
So we're gonna start with you. You're gonna have to do the first one. And
so Darren didn't send his picks again. Is that what it is? Yeah.
Oh, so sorry, guys.
You know.
I am fully unprepared. Just if you haven't already figured that out.
Good. Then you have a place on the show for sure. So we'll kind of go back and forth till we come up with 5. I think that'll be plenty. I don't think we need more than 5 because I have a feeling many of ours overlap. And you know what you find as a top 5 feature, Darren or Eric, I'm going to probably say, well, that sucks. Why would I ever use that? That's stupid.
I will never use that.
But we'll do that. Then, as I told Aaron, I told you in texting, I have a good old classic mic rant, and then which you guys will just have to muscle through. I apologize. You'll just have to listen to me, get it off my chest.
Shakespeare Cloud.
And then I do have unless you have one, Eric, I have an essential app that I can share. I've been kind of sitting on it for a few weeks. It's more of a fun app than an essential app, but I think it'd be a good pick.
That sounds good to me. Yeah, okay. I have. No, it's all good.
All right. Well, you have to bug out at 2:30, so we should go ahead and get going. And I think we'll probably be pretty good.
There is a small possibility that I won't have to. It was still kind of up in the air, so.
Okay. Well, we were scheduled first. I mean, Whoops, where'd you go?
Oh, wait a minute. Now I just went, what happened?
There.
Sign on mode.
You're back.
Okay. All right, what is going on here? Studio display. Yeah, it's like all of a sudden okay. What is going on? I have been having trouble with my Mac where all of a sudden apps just quit.
Uh-oh.
Hello, Brian. It's good to see Brian in the chat room.
You hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Oh, I was going to say silent then for a bit, so you didn't know.
Yeah. I've been having trouble with my apps all of a sudden just quitting. I don't know what's going on.
Well,
we'll have to do a support call for you.
Are they older apps? Are they older apps? Maybe they're just tired.
Yeah, that very well could be, but it does seem like they're newer apps too. So
Just, they want to get into that recliner, kick back, put their feet up, turn on a Cubs
lay on
game
the
or
couch,
something, and yeah.
right.
All
I
right,
think
yeah.
that's exactly what it is.
We'll get started here. That way, we can try to get you out of here on time. All right. So, let us switch to. Where's my. Oh, there it is. I went to the other screen. Why is it over there? Come here. Okay. I got a little program view so that I can keep that kind of in my line of sight. Everything's been opening up on the second screen for some reason. I don't know. Okay. All right. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. It's for Mac Eyes Only, episode number 437 for August 23rd, 2024. That poor frog. Hey everyone, welcome back to For Mac Eyes Only, the show for the Mac community, where we share our thoughts and opinions on current Mac news and events. And joining me to discuss all things Mac is my For Mac Eyes Only co-host, Eric Erickson. Hey Eric, how you doing?
Pretty good. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing great. And back with us again. Get you back up there. And back with us again is the newest member of Team For Mac Eyes Only and our good friend, Darren Davies. Hello, Darren.
Hi there. I'm
Welcome
glad to be
back.
promoted to newest member. Excellent.
Remember, we do normally record For Mac Eyes Only live on YouTube the second and fourth Friday of the month. And if you would like to come hang out, ask questions, and be part of our live studio audience, be sure to subscribe to the show at youtube.com/FMEOTV. And if you are joining us live, I'll be keeping an eye on that chat room too. So if you have any questions or comments as we move along, just pop them there in the chat and we'll try to address them here on the show. Well, last episode, Dave Ginsburg of In Touch with iOS joined us to share his top 5 favorite new features coming to iOS 18. And with Mac OS Sequoia just around the corner, in fact, I saw a report, I think it was just last night, that we may actually see Sequoia released in mid-September. I thought maybe we should do the same thing with Mac OS 15 and take a look at some of our favorite new features that are headed to our Macs this fall. And for those who care for a good old Mike rant, stick around until the end for the top 2 reasons that I am likely to not upgrade to Sequoia. But first, why don't we cover who can run Sequoia? The list of Macs that can run Sequoia is actually pretty impressive. It goes back about 6 years. And that would include the MacBook Air 2020 and later, the MacBook Pro 2018 and later, the Mac Mini 2018 and later, the iMac 2019 and later, the iMac Pro 2017 and later, the Mac Pro 2019 and later, and the Mac Studio 2022 and later. But it should probably be pointed out as I go through that list, and one was even older. 2017 iMac Pro is included on that list. I should probably point out that even though there are plenty of Intel models, including that 2017 iMac Pro, that are on that list, the only models that can actually run the new Apple AI feature that's called Apple Intelligence are the M series Macs.
Right, the Apple system, yep.
Yeah. So now that we know who can run Sequoia, I asked both of you to come up with a list of your top 5 new features that are coming to Sequoia, and I came up with a list as well. So what do you think? Are we ready to get started?
Go for it.
All right, then I am going to go ahead and kick things over to Eric for your first pick for favorite new features coming to Sequoia.
Where do you start? Actually, I've and I don't think it's going to be exactly the same as it is on the iPad now, but I do like that. One of the things I've liked in the past few years that Apple's done with their Mac and their iPhone, or I should say Mac OS and iOS, has been the continuity. I think the continuity thing has actually been a great idea, and kind of a, part of the secret sauce. I think that makes it good. And I think it's something that they should do just as a matter of course. I mean, they would be stupid not to. But, and a few years ago, they added the ability for you to place your iPad next to your Mac and be able to use it alongside your Mac and drag the cursor back and forth, including dragging files. Now you can actually send stuff from your iPhone to your Mac. I think it's just files and stuff like that, but video, photos, music and stuff like that. So I think that's just really cool. I mean, I've liked it actually, just being able to copy something, on my Mac and paste it on my iPhone or vice versa. I mean, that's actually
I love
really
that.
handy. Yeah. And it's, and AirDrop works really quite well. I mean, I do use it quite a bit. I know, my daughter and her friends use it a lot, and it was something that started out a little bit shaky. It was kind of hit or miss. But it actually does work, does do the job. So I'd have to say, that feature definitely makes the top 5 for me. Just as it's going to be something that it's not a sexy thing. It's not one of those standout things, but it's something that you end up using all the time, just even like the copy paste thing. So,
And in your case, you're focused specifically on the copy and paste, the ability to take files and quickly move them over to your iPhone without needing to go through iCloud Drive or Dropbox or something like that.
or even AirDrop. Yeah.
Or
Right.
even AirDrop.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I believe, and I don't think there's any spoilers here, Eric, but I believe that you have been running the beta of Sequoia or not.
I have. I haven't messed around with it too much, but I've been running it on an older MacBook Pro, and I don't know if I've got the latest beta update for it, but I've also I've got that, and I've been running the beta iPhone, the iOS 18.1 as well. So yeah, and I so far I've liked what I've seen with both things. So it'll just be interesting to see how buggy it is.
Well, yeah, and as you're talking about that, I was wondering now, have you tried out this new feature? Have you been able to successfully copy files back and forth
I
to
have
the iPhone?
No, I haven't tried that out yet, but I mean, I was going to try that after we get off here just to see if it worked. Some of their stuff isn't working all the way, but I
Like
think
Apple
that
Intelligence.
right. Actually, though, that does work on the iPhone now if you have 18.1, and I've actually used that, and it works pretty well. Now, I haven't really gone nuts with it, but you can, it just brings up, you can like bring up little, when you select text, one of the things will be writing tools. And then in there, you can choose to have it rewrite. You can have it change the tone and, all different stuff like that. So I'm sure there's supposed to be more too, but that is actually kind of slick.
Well, hold that thought because I think that is one of Darren's picks. So we'll get to that in just a moment. I guess what I was kind of working at, and the reason I was curious if you had tried the file copy and paste or drag and drop yet, is if you can do that with other people's phones. Like, can you I don't suppose you can. Now that I think about it, as
No.
I'm saying those
I
words,
would
you
have said
can't.
no.
It would you would have to be able to be signed into the same iCloud account.
iCloud. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah,
same way that
absolutely.
that's kind of the catch-all. Yeah.
Yeah. So AirDrop will continue to be the way to copy files to other people who
People's
aren't sharing your account, and then this
Yeah.
will be
Right.
the way to do it for your own stuff. Yeah.
Your own stuff.
Interesting.
Right. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Darren, Eric kind of hinted at this a moment ago, but I believe one of your top 5 features has to do with Apple Intelligence and some of the features coming to Sequoia.
Yeah, yeah. I think, yeah, Eric hinted at it's one of the Apple Intelligence features. They're sort of strewn throughout the OS. So, and as we see with the betas, or betas, not everyone is active yet. So they're all being activated in parts. But the ones I was quite interested in are as Eric said, the summarize tools for writing is one of my top fives. And also linked to that is the summarize previews in Apple Mail that probably use the same sort of feature, actually. So currently, Apple Mail just gives you the first 2 lines of every email, whereas that's, I believe, going to change. I'm not running any of the betas. I'm not as brave as young Eric here. It's all going to come as a lovely surprise to me when it all arrives in the final version. But I believe that there's some very nice summarization of those 2 default lines in Apple Mail to give you more of an idea of what an email is before you click on it, which I think is a very good small feature, but really, really handy, actually, and linked to the summarization for writing tools and writing assistants, which is also quite clever and quite nice. Like I think I'll quite make some good use of that.
I will almost certainly make good use of this. I have been using the built-in summarize feature of macOS for years. It's been in there forever, and I absolutely love it. And, my first thought was, well, we've had summarize, and it hasn't required the use of AI to operate, and it does a pretty darn good job. But as I considered it more thoroughly, I realized that with AI behind it, we're going to get much more accurate summaries. If you've played with the text summarize feature and you drag the little slider back and forth and go to paragraphs or sentences or whatnot, it does a pretty good job. But there's always instances where I say, we could do that a little bit better, and I end up modifying it. And I can imagine that extra step of needing to modify the summaries is going to probably go away for the most part when we have this Apple Intelligence. I'm just going to call it AI. I'm not going to keep saying Apple Intelligence. The AI features coming to macOS and iOS are going to greatly enhance the tools that or many of us, I should say, not all of us, but many of us have come used to using. And now I don't use Apple Mail. I'm not quite sure personally of the functionality of the mail summarization feature and whether that would be useful enough to me to switch. Typically, I won't open an email. If you send me an email, I'm not going to open it unless I recognize who you are and that we've had a previous conversation, or it's a client email or something like that, in which case a summary doesn't really matter that much to me. And then the rest of the emails I get are typically newsletters or advertisements or what have you. So I don't know how useful that feature would be to me personally, but I could see there's a lot of folks who just they don't like email. And they really want to limit their interaction with it as much as possible. So if you can give them a summarization of what my long rambling message was about, perhaps it will have the reverse effect and actually encourage them to reply versus setting it aside because they don't want to take the time to read it.
That's it, yeah. Prioritization, yeah. I think it's possible, I don't know, but I think it's possible that feature is available through an API so that other mail creators, such as Thunderbird, for instance, might be able to hook into that. Obviously, they won't be able to yet, but it's a possibility that it's not just going to be limited to just Apple Mail. So yeah, there's all sorts of very nice and interesting hooks that Apple have made available to their AI functions through some nice APIs. I'm just hoping that that as you mentioned, the existing summarize feature is really nice. It's been nice for years. That's based on a simple mathematical perhaps not simple, but a very interesting mathematical algorithm. I believe there's it's the job of one sole guy at Apple sitting there in a corner somewhere who maintains the summarize feature and has been honing his or her potentially their algorithm over the years, for the last 15 or so years.
It's been a long time.
Hopefully they're not out of a job. Oh, we don't need this algorithm anymore. We got an AI to do that for you.
Well, they're probably pushing retirement anyway.
Perhaps. Or like the illustrious Sal Sequoia.
See, well, yes, exactly. You know where I thought you were going at first, Darren, and this is because my brain works this way. I thought you were building up to a bad dad joke, and you were going to say that this was pre-Apple intelligence, and there's somebody in the corner at Apple that every time you issue a summarize command, the text gets sent to them, they summarize it, and then send it back.
Oh, they send it back. That would be particularly, that'd be very clever. Yeah.
But your mind went to the practical. Yes.
Yeah.
In which case, in your case, Mike, the guy would want to retire.
Right.
Would hope. Yeah.
He's praying for retirement.
Well, he or she are they're just happy that not enough people know about it. So, you know, the workload is reduced a bit.
It is a crying shame that not everyone knows about this wonderful feature that's just been sitting there in the menu for, or it feels like forever.
Services.
And if it's not sitting there, it's easy enough to turn on. In fact, it's one of the tips that I share when I give talks at user group meetings. Some of my favorite, Mac tweaks. One of the tweaks is to turn that on. And then I demonstrate how it works by using, classic literature texts and things like that to get a summarization
with a slider.
Yeah.
And people are amazed.
A lot of folks simply did not know that it existed. And it will continue to exist, I imagine, especially for those who have an Intel Mac and can't use the Apple Intelligence features. So,
that's
fantastic.
That's a good point. I wonder, I mean, I guess the Apple Intelligence Summary will probably replace it in all respects, but maybe will it? Maybe there will still be there'll still be a place for that summary. The other thing, like you said,
could be.
It's been there for a long time, but now it's even, more recently it's been more hidden. Because you had to show me how to find it. I mean, turn it on in the Apple keyboard shortcut because I thought it was gone.
That's right.
And I mean. I was somebody that knew it was there. And so it's like, if people don't know it's there, you kind of wonder, like, why try to hide something like that? It's a good, it's not like it's not like when they did it, they replaced it with something better. They hadn't, had it yet. So,
so instead, Apple is Sherlocking their own tool.
They do it to themselves. Yeah.
I think Brian in the chat just made an interesting point, actually, about potentially moving to Apple Mail from other mail providers because of things you can do, including the automatic deletion of codes that come through as well, and management of codes, which I find indispensable now. But I've been an Apple Mail user for absolutely ages, so I've gotten used to that existing, and it would be really strange if I went to a different mail provider and none of that worked anymore. I'd be all at sea.
There's always a way to make a third-party client like Thunderbird, bend to your will. And something along those lines would be easy enough to filter through your messages and set up a routine that automatically moves them to the trash or something like that. But
sure.
I guess to have it automatically in there is great. It's weird how we've come to a point in 2024 where there is so much storage space available to us for mail. And this was Gmail's original selling point. You never have to delete another message ever. That
Yeah.
we've gotten used, or I've gotten used to the fact that I don't ever have to delete another email message. I
No.
I do archive them. I do have local folders, so you can do this in Apple Mail too. But I have my Google Workspace and Gmail and iCloud and other cloud-based email accounts in there. But then I also have local folders, and I will routinely archive stuff out of them just to take some of that storage space, or free up some of that storage space from the cloud and push it over to my Mac. But something like a little 1K message with a two-factor code, I don't even think
Yeah.
about it. I just let it sit there forever. And
Oh, I
Well,
do like them being
the-
cleaned up. Um,
yeah. Well, the one part of it is deleting it, but the other part of it is just getting the code. If you get a code in mail, it automatically pops into whatever your
exactly. Yeah.
wherever the code needs to be. The same thing with
that's true.
iMessage. I mean,
That's
that's
true.
a huge deal because I hate that, and
It,
I love the fact that I mean, I love the fact that it deletes it, but the first part is the thing that I really appreciate.
I
That's
I joke. I often joke. Someone asks me to remember something, and I'll say, "Well, I'm really, really good at remembering six-digit codes."
yeah.
But
Yes. Yeah.
anything more than that, a phone number, anything
It's
longer, shorter, if it's not six digits, there
I
are
can't
some
remember it.
providers that send an 8-digit two-factor code, and I cannot for the
How
life of
dare they?
me recall that. So I always have to have it up and ready to transcribe over manually because
Yeah.
I simply cannot remember anything longer
Remember
than six digits.
Yeah.
6 digits.
Like, yeah, like Eric says, I love the fact that the system handles that for you. It
Yeah.
knows the field that
Yeah.
you're about to type it into. It surfaces the code when you've been sent it exactly the right time for you to type in. Or in fact, you don't need to type it in. You just click in the field and say, add the code.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's it being handled by the system automatically, and also cleaning the mess up afterwards. It is awesome. No other system, to my mind, does that.
No
Yeah.
other system does. And you're absolutely right. I love that in messages. I guess I didn't realize it was there in mail because I don't
Yeah.
use
Don't
Apple
use
Mail.
mail. Yeah.
The truth is coming out.
Now he also mentions
Well,
calendar integration, and I kind
yeah.
of thought that calendar integration was always there. So I don't know what, and maybe one of you two knows what's new in Sequoia that wasn't there before in terms of calendar integration.
I think the current stuff is purely algorithmic. So the calculation of where you're going to go in your calendar, if you've got a location set, for it to say, oh, you need to leave half an hour early, for instance, is all purely
Mm,
algorithmic. But I
I see.
think I have no idea what it's going to be, but I think there are some nice new AI-based sprinkles of magic that will appear uh, in the calendar app that we have yet to experience, because I don't think
Well,
anyone's seen it surface yet.
is he talking about the calendar? You're going to be able to calendars integrated into mail. I guess I don't know if I heard that, but because calendar isn't integrated with mail now the way that it is, like the way that Outlook has a
Mm,
calendar within the app.
They're, they're
And
kind of joining
yeah,
a bit. There's I think there's some joined together thinking with calendar and tasks, for instance. So tasks are
yeah,
appearing in
reminders
calendar,
and
and calendar events and
yeah,
reminders are appearing, and vice versa. So they're all
yeah,
sharing some new
yes,
functionality there, and mixing a little bit of AI into the mix there with all of them together, and you've got some interesting things you can ask your calendar to do, or set a reminder, or link in with this note that I have, or that sort of thing.
And Brian did clarify he meant in moving from Outlook to Mail, he would like to have that integration that does exist. So I misunderstood what he was saying.
Yeah,
Um,
I did too.
so my pick is something I was a little excited about when Apple made this announcement. I did misunderstand it a bit in terms of how it works, but I'm going to have to pick transcription in Notes. I think this is fantastic. I have been using a great little app for the
Yeah,
Mac called Mac Whisper for quite some time. Whenever I need to transcribe some audio, I can use Mac Whisper for that. And the other thing that Mac Whisper now does, and I stopped short of using it only because it requires signing up for yet another service, a Yaz, yet another service, right? Even
yeah,
though it's allegedly free, Mac Whisper is now offering translations. So if you have an audio file in German, you can slap that audio file into Mac Whisper and it will not only transcribe it, but it will, um,
it's nice.
you know, it will translate it for you at the same time,
Yeah,
which is just absolutely awesome. Now, I did realize, and I did have that very situation. I had an audio file in German, and my German is not good enough to understand a conversational speaking um, a piece of audio. So I thought, oh well, I'll use this Mac Whisper feature, and I quickly realized I had to sign up for this other service. And I said, nah, I got to come up with another way to do this. So I used Mac Whisper to convert it to text. And then I took that converted text and threw it into the translate feature of Mac OS, and boom, I was done. And none of this, by the way, using Apple Intelligence. It's just the translate feature of Mac OS is just built right in, which is great. And I imagine that
yep,
it will become better, or at least more enhanced, once we have the Apple AI features added to it as well. But
yep.
that was a little sidetrack there. Transcription and notes, which I do believe requires Apple Intelligence, sounds like a huge step up from the transcription that's been in macOS, well, for forever. So I'm kind of looking
Yeah.
forward to it. And the one thing that I would like to know is if I can take an existing audio file and drag it into Notes and
Well, that's a
have
good
it,
question.
uh, transcribed. That's something I don't know if I can do that or not, but to
I
have the
think
ability to just fire up notes, much like Audio Recorder on iOS, to fire up notes and record a lecture, record a workshop that you're sitting in, record anything going on in the room, and then have an automatic transcription made of that while the recording is taking place is
Yeah,
phenomenal.
yeah,
And yeah, there's other tools that can do it, like Mac Whisper, but now it's going to be built right into Mac
yeah.
OS,
Having it
and
built into Notes is superb.
I think
Uh,
that's
I
phenomenal.
I think you
and of course,
I'm thinking that you probably will be able to drag an audio file into Notes and have it, because that's
I think
almost kind of
so.
the way
Yeah,
that it works with the phone recording. If you record a phone call, it transcribes it in Notes, and the audio file, I believe, also sits in Notes as well. But I
yeah.
don't
You can
think it
drag that out. Yeah,
transcribes while the call is going. I think it happens afterwards. So
Mm,
I would think that you would be able to do the same with just an audio file that you have and have it transcribed. Drag it
yeah.
into Notes and say transcribe this.
yeah. And if I understand, the
If
One
that
of the things
transcription
I like
is
is,
real time, no?
well,
Yeah, it would probably that too. Yeah, but
I think
you were
so.
asking about could you drag an audio file into Notes and have it transcribed? Is that what you?
Yeah, that was my original question. Yeah, I thought that
Yeah,
would be
yeah.
great to be able to do that.
I think you'll be able to do that. I would think so, but sure.
So all that said, I think this is going to be an amazing feature in macOS 15. Notice I'm not going to write Sequoia that much. I have to give credit to Brian in the chat room for typing Sequoia over and over and over again, because it is not an easy word to spell. So
I
you
can't spell it.
probably find that I start referring to macOS Sequoia as macOS 15 more and more as time goes on over the next year. But that said, this is going to be a great feature coming to Sequoia. And if I could ask for anything in it, it would be on the fly translation at the same time. I think that would be just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Two-way translation would be awesome. One day we'll get Babel Fish on our phone.
Oh, I would love it.
Yes.
I would love it.
Yeah.
And many services do offer that.
Yeah,
Skype has had that kind of on the fly translation for a few years now.
yeah.
And I
But
think
it'd be just so
Microsoft
nice to
Teams
have it
does too.
built in, so that people don't have to think about it, or as you say, sign up for this service or that service, or go back and forth, and just have it all built in with
Right.
an underpinning layer of intelligence there. It's going to be, it will be a game changer, having it all there and built in for people to just discover, rather than have to think, oh, if I need to achieve this, how on earth am I going to achieve it? What do I have to sign up for? And back and forth and so on. And people will just, well, many people will give up. But having it just there, built in at the OS level, and also having a nice integration between all the platforms together. So notes running on your phone, your iPad, and your Mac, all doing the same thing and all synchronizing the same um, uh, translations and so on. It's going to make life a lot easier. You won't have to manage your different buckets of information in different sources with different accounts. It's all going to be integrated and just there. So that's going to be better.
And if we take it one step further, you mentioned Babel Fish, which is, of course, from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And one of the first things
Yeah.
I thought of was the TARDIS and its ability to translate languages no matter where it is in the universe. And to have something like that, now we're blue skying this. This is not coming to Sequoia or iOS 18.
Not
I
yet.
know. I was
But
gonna say.
imagine having your AirPods in and
Yeah. Yeah, it's
on the
coming, I'm sure.
fly
Yeah.
without any
Yeah.
interaction. And this does tie into my rant a little bit later, but without any interaction,
Yeah.
automatically translate the conversation that's going on around
Yeah.
you would be amazing.
Yeah.
And I think we are this
Yeah.
close to having that capability in
We
our
are. It's
iPhones.
this close. Yeah.
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 Yep.
It'll just automatically
Yeah.
detect whatever languages are being spoken and figure out what it needs to do as a true AI assistant.
That would
The
be
future is here,
that would
nearly.
be awesome. Yeah. Yeah, and not only what you're hearing, but what you're saying, to then turn around. Which reminds me, in 1985, I went to Germany as an exchange student, and the exchange rate was really, really good at the time, dollars to marks, and I picked up, the foreign language dictionaries, Langenscheidt. I picked up a calculator, a Langenscheidt calculator, and it did calculations, but it also did translations. So you could go through its built-in dictionary. Keep in mind, this is 1985. You could go through its built-in
Wow.
dictionary and find the words the word or words that you wanted to say, and then tap translate, and it would look them up in the other language. So when we were tooling around with the other kids, it was very common for one of them to say, give me your calculator," and then we'd be passing it around in the car, trying to figure out what we were trying to tell each other, because none of us were completely fluent in English or German at the time. So it
Yeah.
it was a fun. But now,
Excellent.
to have something like this, our
Yeah.
little blue sky imagination of what the future might hold, it would be seamless. The only
Yeah.
downfall being
Yes.
that we'd all have to have little AirPods in all the time, and that's the one thing I'm
True.
not looking
I
forward
will
to.
not do.
I will not. I probably will not do. All right, Eric, that brings us to you. We've had 3 top picks for features coming to macOS Sequoia this fall. What is your next pick?
Okay, so this one too is probably in the scheme of things pretty small, but I do. It's something that, and it's one of the reasons that I use Safari forever. And actually, the with Safari, and Safari's had this forever, and it's their reader capability, and it's actually, to me, I thought it was one of the most underrated, understated things about Safari, and anybody that would listen, I would tell them about it because it just was a great way to basically break sites into text and get rid of the ads. And I still use it today. Well, I use it, and in fact, just about every other browser in the market's added their own version of Reader on it as well. And I don't know if you've seen these sites, but they'll have like the top 15 actors that you didn't know were dead or something like that, and
Yeah.
they'll have like a page and a picture and a little bit of text or whatever. And then to see the next thing, it's like a slideshow, but you have to reload the page and do the new ad. Well, Reader just basically just loads them all at once down the line, the pictures and the text, and you don't have to do that. It's terrific. So anyway, they've, I guess, redesigned Reader, and I haven't had a chance to check this out, but they've redesigned it so that you can. I think one thing it does is a summary, and the other thing it does is put a table of contents down,
Mm-hmm.
and so you can really get the idea of the article before you read it. And I'm sure the table of contents probably works off of the different heading, in H1, H2, H3 sort of thing. The way that it does in some markdown apps now. But anyway, so I am, kind of excited about that, and I would like to check that out and see if it's actually going to be as good as it sounds. Another great thing for Reader too is if you get one of those things where you get those sites, you're just on it for a second, and it says, please don't block our ads. And usually I try to turn it off if I'm going to be using, but sometimes you just want to see one page. You go into reader mode, you see the page, you read what you need, and you can get out. And
Yep.
that works great.
Yeah, I do that quite frequently. Now I use Firefox, and Firefox's reader mode is fantastic. To the best of my
Yeah.
knowledge, it does not offer the table of contents or the summary of the article like you said Safari does. But it's very good. The one thing I've noticed is what you were just talking about there, and it happens a lot with the newspapers. They tease you
Yeah.
with this headline, and you're like, oh, I want to
Yeah.
hear that, and you go there and you see like 3 sentences, and oh, you got to subscribe to our newspaper for $10 a month or whatever it
Yes.
is. Well,
Yeah.
that's not going to happen because I'm just not going to read it
No.
enough to care. I want to read this article, and
This article.
switching to reader view often helps, but I've noticed that more and more newspapers are becoming savvy to that, and
Yeah.
reader view is not working on those
Yeah.
sites. You still get the little brief article unless you subscribe, which is quite clever
Yeah.
of them, while at the same time quite annoying. Although I
Yeah.
understand, I get it, I
Certainly.
understand.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
the Yeah, so reader view is incredibly useful in that regard. And then as far as the top whatever celebrity articles, now we know what kind of websites you visit.
Yeah. I really
Oh, you
don't.
won't believe these 15 things. You won't believe what happened next.
Reader view,
You're
reader
right.
view is amazing though, and if anyone is not familiar with it, it's usually represented by a little piece of paper icon with some lines on it. I think that's what Safari's is
Lines
as
on it.
well. That's what it is in Firefox. I can't
Yeah.
speak for. I don't know if Chrome has a reader view, although
Chrome does have a reader view,
it
but
does.
they're very sly. They're very sly about it because when you look at Chrome's reader view, they still put the adverts over to one side. So they've got a two pane situation going on there. So because of course a lot of their money comes, they're an advertising company effectively, Google.
Sure.
So they don't want to
Right.
block advertising cookies. They don't want to block adverts themselves. So their reader view is nothing like everyone else's reader view that tries to make the experience nice for the user. Chrome's reader view wants to make the experience nice for Google,
Yeah.
i.e.
Yeah.
getting money for all those ads.
Well, you're absolutely right. And that brought to mind the whole YouTube ad controversy. And
Yeah.
whether you should subscribe to YouTube, what do they call it? YouTube Premium or whatever for $15 a month, I think, something like
Oh, it's
that.
a lot. It's expensive. Yeah.
Or watch the
Yeah.
ads. And
Yeah.
I watch
Right.
the ads, and quite frankly, I don't block them. And I've talked about this on other podcasts. I don't block them because a chunk of the ad revenue goes to the creators, and it supports the creators
Right.
whose works I'm watching. So I'm a little conflicted on blocking ads on YouTube for that reason. And I do understand, the newspapers and Macworld, another website with tons of ads on it, or PC Magazine, which I believe is the same parent company as Macworld. They have a ton of ads, and that's what helps support the free content that I'm getting from them.
True.
So I get it. But along those lines, I had never used the Brave browser before. And I believe you use it, don't you, Eric? Brave?
I've used it. Yeah,
But
I've used it a few
but
times.
not
I
on a
don't
regular
use it
basis.
regularly. Yeah.
For some reason, it popped up in something I was reading yesterday, and I clicked through to see the current state of Brave, I guess. And one of the things that they tout on their site is the ability to block YouTube ads, which surprised me because all the controversy going on right now with YouTube ad blockers and whatnot, and Google's efforts
Right.
to thwart those ad blockers. I thought, well, that's an interesting thing for Brave to tout on their site.
Tout. Yeah.
So I thought I'll download it and give it a try. Why not? And I didn't sign into my YouTube account. I didn't sign into anything. I just launched Brave and went to youtube.com and pulled up one of the longer videos that I typically watch. I went to the channel. I won't say whose channel it was, but I went to the channel, and there's normally ads at the beginning and at least 2 or 3 times throughout the video, and then often at the end they do it now as well. And darn if there wasn't one ad displayed the entire time. It completely blocked it. And there's a little icon in the address bar that tells you how many ads it's blocking, and it got up to somewhere around 48 during the course of this video that I was watching.
Google will not be happy about
that. No, especially since it's Chromium based. They're going to pull their open source license and stop everybody from using it. But
that's what I was.
it did an amazing job. Now I don't know what it will do in terms of the injected ads. That's something new that Google is trying, where they're actively injecting the ads straight into the videos, and that's to thwart ad blockers. So I don't know what what Brave will do when it comes to that, but no need to install a third-party plugin or whatnot. Just download the Brave browser, and that seems to do a pretty good job of it.
All by itself.
The other one that does a good job with ad blocking is Opera, and that's built in to Opera. But it doesn't block YouTube ads. It specifically just blocks the pop-ups and sidebar ads and things like that. But it does have a very good ad blocker, and both Opera and Brave also have in Opera's case, it's free, has a built-in VPN mode. And I know Brave had a VPN mode as well, but it may not be free. I think there may be a charge for it. But any event, I just started thinking about that when you're talking about the ads, Darren, that Google so helpfully displays off to the side while you're in reader mode. And it's something that Firefox, I'm on, I have a few articles up here that I was just kind of had at the ready while, getting ready for the show. And one of them is Wired, one of them is PC Magazine, one of them is Mac Rumors. And Firefox actually did a really good job of not only displaying just the content, but displaying the images as well, which is something that
Yeah, yeah.
some reader modes don't do. So
Yeah, it, that's
that's
a
nice to
big
see.
deal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, I think
Well then,
excessive advertising is sort of, you could almost say, especially on the phone, excessive advertising has almost broken the internet. There are pages
mhm,
you just cannot go to
yeah,
and
yeah,
navigate. You have
yeah,
like one sentence, 5 screens down, as you fly through 700 ads just to find
yeah,
part of what you should be reading, and it's just made the user experience so bad that people just will not stay on websites like that. So it's detrimental to the website itself to
yeah,
put too many ads on and make it a bad user experience. So the people putting adverts in need to know that they are making the user experience so bad that they just won't get any viewers anyway.
well,
yeah,
exactly. And where I noticed that the most, quite frankly, is on the phone. I don't.
yeah. That's what you were
I
saying.
have.
Yep.
I've become a little um, ads on a Mac browser or a PC browser just kind of disappear to me. They fall into the background, and I don't really notice them so much when I'm sitting on a website on my desktop or laptop computer. But I notice them too much on the phone. And where
Yeah,
it pops up a lot is specifically in Flipboard and in Google News. Google News and Flipboard. Now, this is not the fault of either of them. Google News and Flipboard, when you tap through to an article, basically use their built in browser rendering engine, which is often Chromium. And in Google News's case, it's Chromium for sure. Um, Actually, it wouldn't be on the phone, would it?
Well,
no, not on the phone,
yeah.
no.
Not on
But
the
But
phone.
it's
Yeah.
still the browser view that you use are directed to from within the app stays within the app and doesn't allow you to do things like blocking that they don't want you to do. So, for instance, if you're on Facebook and you click a link, it will launch uh, a browser internal to the Facebook app, although it's still using Safari underneath as an engine. It won't allow you to skip those ads and move things around and do a reader
no, I
view
think
because it doesn't turn that functionality on. It's only available in the full browser itself. Whereas if you're using the browser that's part of an app like Facebook, they turn that functionality off to almost pretty much
is
force
that
you to read these. And
is that true? Because because the extensions are actually in the settings, and I thought that basically that single simple web thing that's sort of the internal browser is basically just kind of a hacked version of Safari anyway. It's sort of a I don't know. I guess I'm trying to think. I don't remember seeing a lot of ads because I do if I see a bunch of ads and it drives me nuts, I would automatically shift over to a full web browser.
yeah,
Yeah.
what I usually do, for instance, in Facebook, if I go to a web page from there, or you won't believe what happened next. You click on that link,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
you just you can't navigate the page at all. I go in
Yeah.
and say open this site in Safari, which then comes out of Facebook into Safari and lets you then do the full thing with the reader view and clean things up and blocking and so on. But
Mm.
the browser mode that you're viewing when you click on the link inside um, something like Facebook is a UI, an API UI view to the web browser engine, which is controlled by how Facebook wants you to see and experience that web view. So it's different to
Mm.
how
Mm.
things work on the external browser.
Well, this is why we keep you around, Darren. Now, two
Yeah.
quick comments. the first comment is to Eric. Eric, Apple is going to absolutely love that you referred to it as a hacked version of Safari. That
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
But the second thing what I was leading up to really are those stupid video ads that are in the websites where the video is there, and while you could normally scroll past it, once you scroll past the video,
Yeah.
it
It drops
invariably
down.
drops down in a pop-up window.
Yeah.
yeah, a
And
picture-in-picture
I'm
view.
constantly tapping the little X's, and they make it so incredibly tiny that if you
Yeah.
don't hit it just right, you end up going to the ad website. And
That's it.
those are the most annoying thing to me because with Firefox, I'm used to being able to say, just block all videos. Don't autoplay any videos, and they
That's it.
typically don't come up. But yeah, so it's so bad. It's so bad that as I'm going through Google News or Flipboard, my phone gets incredibly warm,
Yeah.
like almost to to the point where you're like,
Yeah.
wow, what
Yeah,
the heck is going on? And I realize I just have to swipe up and kill off Flipboard or Google News, whatever I'm in, and then
yeah.
suddenly it starts to cool down again. But ads are the
The bane
bane
of
of
our
the internet,
lives.
the bane of our lives, the bane of the
Yeah.
internet. Speaking of bane, that brings up Batman, which brings up Darren. Darren, what's your next
Oh,
pick?
oh yes. What is my next pick? Um, my next one. Oh, did I mention the iPhone mirror? I think I mentioned that earlier on, but not whilst the show
Not as
started,
an
actually.
official
But
pick.
Right.
perfect. In that case, an official pick. I currently use a piece of software, a very good piece of software called Air Server. Um, although I believe, well, the last time I checked, it may not be true now, so forgive me if it's completely wrong. But Air Server wasn't Apple Silicon native, which I find quite distressing because Apple Silicon has been out for 4 years now, so
Yeah.
every developer worth their salt should really have made an Apple Silicon version of their software by now. Mini rant over. um, so the what Air Server does is it allows you to cast your um, iOS and funnily enough Android devices as well. Funnily enough, your devices to your Mac or
Mm.
computer, and allows you to not necessarily have full control, but at least it's a visual thing. So I currently use Air Server, and the my top five thing that is going to be really nice when that arrives in Sequoia is iPhone mirroring, because not only is it just going to display your iOS device, iPhone, potentially iPad as well. I believe it is iPad as well. Um, it's going to enable you to control the device as well from your Mac, which is a step up. So there's two things I wouldn't necessarily use that massively myself, but there's two things I would use that for. Is when, for instance, I'm on a podcast, and I'm sharing, or say Zoom or something like that, and I'm sharing my screen. I can then share my Mac's screen's shared iOS device screen, and do demos, for instance. So then I'd be able to do iOS-based demos from a Mac session, which you can't do. So iPhone mirroring will allow me to do that, which is I'm quite excited by. That's quite good. And it would also I help a few people through their issues and so on with remote support. And currently, there's no way of helping someone easily with an iOS device, especially if I'm on a call via their Mac or other computers, really. So having another person at the other end that I'm intending to help with their iOS device be able to easily mirror their device to their Mac and let me control it through the session to help them would be extremely useful as well. So this could go both ways. So there's my pick if it works.
That
Yeah.
is an interesting solution to the problem that formed in my head as I thought about this. Because and by the way, you talked about Air Server. I've used an app called Reflector, which is somewhat similar to that. And I believe Dave Ginsburg introduced me to Reflector, and it's a great app, but I never ended up using it that much. And I don't see needing or wanting to use the iPhone mirroring all that much. When it was announced, I got the idea in my head, falsely so, that we would be able to use this for support. If we
Yeah.
could directly connect to somebody else's iPhone or iPad and be able to control it, which I believe there's some functionality similar to that through messages, but in a
Well,
limited
there is
Yeah,
fashion.
well, is that what
there
links
is
to
from Mac
FaceTime?
to
Is that?
Mac.
Yes,
From
Mac to
Mac to
Mac,
Mac,
but not iOS. Yeah.
you can use iMessage to connect to somebody else's another Mac, and that works great. In fact, it's terrific
Yeah.
because, I just used it with somebody. You don't need to install other software on there. If the other person uses iMessage on their Mac, you just basically say, ask to share screen, they accept, and then
Yeah.
it shows up and it works great. Yeah. But there is nothing like that
Yeah.
for the phone.
So
that I know.
if something like this with Sequoia and iOS 18 comes to messages where we can control somebody else's phone or iPad,
That'd be
I think this would
great.
be amazing. Um,
Yeah.
I think it,
I
as I
think we'll
said,
be able to do that through a call, as Eric said. I think we'll be able to do that through a call, through as we do now for FaceTime and screen sharing, because then the other person will be able to share their iOS device through that session. So it won't directly be we'd be able to remote control someone else's iOS device without going through the Mac.
and that's where it's a shame, because I think
That's right.
and as I said, I think it was wishful thinking on our part, or at least my part, when I heard this announced. If we could directly connect to somebody else's phone, as you can with third-party tools like Splashtop, you can do it, but your ability to control that device is somewhat limited. There's a
Yeah.
little bit of interaction, but not as much as you, the support person, would like to have. There's far too much. Okay,
I mean,
now
it's not too bad.
can you tap that icon on screen for me? That kind of stuff. It gets
Yeah.
gets put in there,
You
and
will have to do that, I think. Yeah.
when
Yeah.
they were unable to figure that out before calling you, and now you're connected to it, but you're saying tap that icon on screen, well, that's what they couldn't do in the first place. So
First place. Yeah.
At least you can see what they're trying to tap.
yeah, if we could directly
Yeah.
interact with their phone,
That would be great.
that would be great. But
Yeah.
your solution, I think, is going to be a really, really good one. Connect to their Mac and then have
Yes.
them do the iPhone mirroring, and then you can control it. So it's kind of a two-step process, but I think that's a nice workaround if it, as you said, if it works.
Well,
Yeah,
yes, we'll have to
if it
try
works.
this in practice with someone who's not very IT literate at the other end, and we see how
Yeah.
that goes.
Now, that's
So at least we
fine.
won't be able to have to imagine. We won't have to imagine the iPhone screen at the other end and think, oh no, it's the top right-hand corner.
Right.
Just pull down from the top right. You mean
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you've got to
But
imagine them doing it. So at least
I see
we'll be able to see
notifications.
them.
No, the top right, the far
No.
top right,
The other right.
the other right.
The other, not your right,
Yeah.
my right.
Yeah. Ugh. See, that's the thing. Because
Support.
for years, you've been able to connect to someone else's Mac through your iPhone. There's tons of apps you can do that. I think, like you mentioned,
Yeah.
Splashtop
Yes.
and Jump Desktop
But
and
not the other
everything,
way
where
around.
you can use your iOS device and connect to their Mac. I just don't know why it's so hard to do it the other way around. And I know Apple is big on security and is probably worried, but there's got to be
quite right,
a
yeah.
way to do it.
Yeah, I'm hoping
that
there's
made
not
it
too
work.
many layers of permissions that people have to agree to. Although, in a way,
Yeah.
it's good that there are permissions in the way of somebody nefarious trying to do the same thing. So what is convenient to us as support people is inconvenient to people trying to scam someone. So that's just as it should be, really. Although it is difficult because
Right.
you're trying to explain to a person that isn't IT literate how to give you permission to help them. It's really tricky.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that is 5.
Yeah.
We've covered 5 great new features coming to macOS Sequoia. I know there's a few others that maybe you wanted to mention, Darren, or that you wanted to mention, Eric. I know the Passwords app came up quite a lot in our lists.
Yeah.
You also mentioned, I talked about Apple Notes. You mentioned the ability to have collapsible sections in Notes, which I didn't know was coming.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's a
Oh
nice
yeah.
hidden little
Yeah.
feature there. Yeah. So I'm sort of living in Notes now. I've migrated, as you, Mike. I think you migrated away from. What was it you used to use? We both used it, I
Evernote.
think.
Evernote
That's the one.
and
Evernote. Yes.
yeah, so now
So
it's a
I've
combination of
migrated away from
Notes
I
and
migrated away
Joplin
from
are what I'm
Evernote
using. Yeah.
quite some time ago, and I'm living in Apple Notes now, and the ability to collapse sections of notes and not have them be so long, and manage them easier is going to be really good. Like a nice little hidden, a very small feature there that, as you say, people may not realize is coming down the line for Sequoia, but yeah, it's going to make a big difference. And again, with the Passwords app, that's the only other one I was going to mention, which is I'm some of the people I help were struggling a little bit using a third-party password manager,
Yeah.
and we decided in the end to simplify things and migrate them over back to Apple's built-in password management. Although, even though it was cunningly hidden inside the settings app, now it's going to be in Sequoia and
Its own.
iOS as well. It's going to be promoted into a full-blown, some may say not
App of its
full-blown
own. Yeah.
passwords app. Although it's one of those things that's although not as fully featured as some third-party apps, it's in the good enough territory, and it's also really nice and easy to use, so people can just unlock them by looking at a device or so on, and it's much easier than trying to navigate using third-party password managers for some people I help out. And as I was doing that, I was realizing, actually, this is really rather nice, and I could see where it was going with Apple, and I thought, well, I should move. I should eat my own dog food. I should move myself, and that's precisely what I've been doing, slowly moving away from my third-party password manager towards Apple's password management, and really pleased to see it all promoted as a full first-class, first-party app on Apple devices for password management now, and makes things so much easier. You don't have to synchronize with different storage systems or encrypted files and so on, or accounts. As you say, sign up for lots of different accounts and then make sure all your stuff is synchronized with account management across. So all of that goes away. It's all just nicely there and built in, and I think it's going to improve what the people that I help with their struggles with passwords, and it's also streamlining what I do as well. So I'm slowly getting around the slight problematics of the missing parts of what I currently use in my password manager, and sort of fudging things slightly to get some of those details into Apple's password manager that doesn't support those types of things yet. But I'm sure it's all coming, and the implementation of what I've seen so far is really nice. So I'm really pleased that the password management in Apple OS is becoming front and center and easy for people to migrate to and use.
Yeah. That was one of Dave's picks too when it came to iOS 18 is the password management app that's coming. And I have to say I think that's fantastic. I may not be the target market for it, and I feel as if it's not quite at the level that something like Strongbox or 1Password or any of them, Bitwarden or whatever are at. Bitwarden, yeah. Um, but I definitely appreciate that something like a password management tool is going to be readily available to people who otherwise are not
Don't
using
use.
one. You know,
Yeah.
they're using Notes or they're
Yeah.
using a Word doc or they're using, as I mentioned when we talked to Dave, the Contacts app, which is just bonkers.
Yeah.
But if they can,
Same.
and I apologize to anyone using the Contacts app for their passwords, but do not do that.
No, I don't.
Don't do
I
that.
do
don't.
Don't do it.
do not do that. Um, so I definitely appreciate that it's going to be there, and that for the folks who aren't using one, this is going to be a great step into the world of password management, without the confusion of what is this doing for me. Uh, it was always very difficult to explain the purpose of 1Password. People seem to think that it would kind of automagically manage all their passwords for them and go out and update Amazon when they wanted to update their password. If they changed their password to 1Password, why didn't it update it on their website? Well, it's really just a database. It's not meant to be some AI robot that goes out and does all this for you. You still have to take some, interaction
Still got
with the
some effort
website.
there, yeah.
But once you get past that initial confusion of what it's for, many people settle into it, and many people just don't. So having it straight in the operating system is going to be great. I just really
Yeah.
hope that the integration with Windows, Android, and most importantly for me, third-party browsers is at Apple's usual level of excellence, or I'm kind of concerned that this is not going to advance past Apple's ecosystem. So as
Yeah.
long as they can make sure that integration is top notch and encourage people to use it no matter what platform they are on, then I think this is going to
Mm,
be fantastic. If the only thing you're using are Apple devices, well, great. This is a good place to start. But if you are cross-platform or you're using an iPhone and an Android phone, or what have you, which many people do,
yep.
then it's going to be super super important that it integrates well with those other systems and isn't just slapdash thrown together like some of their other
Oh yes.
Windows tools.
Right.
I do have some. I have some good news for you, Mike.
Yes, and what would
Um,
that be, Darren?
the good news is that Apple have thought of this already, and uh, the Passwords app will be available on iCloud.com as well.
Mm,
So you can get through to password management on Windows machines and Linux machines and so on through the cloud, the web portal at
Nice.
least. And also, I believe it's going to be available through the standalone iCloud apps for both Windows and other systems as well. So your cross-platform wish list there is almost already baked in.
almost. The
Almost,
iCloud app
almost,
for
nearly.
Windows is kind of awful, but you know.
Well, there is that.
Yeah, and you know what? Unfortunately, it occurred to me as you were saying that, and thinking back on what I said, wishing that the cross-platform support will be there. It kind of occurred to me that the biggest vector of attack for people's password database hosted by Apple is going to be through Windows and Android. I mean,
Probably,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
that's how the attacks are going to happen.
People have to be careful.
Yeah.
Although Apple has implemented a really nice method of logging into your iCloud account using passkeys, so you don't have to ever type your password, even if your hapless Windows box has a keylogger on it. Makes no difference. It won't be logging your keys because you just look at your iPhone to log into your iCloud account on that machine.
Mm.
Although, doing so, as you say, doing that sort of thing on compromised machines, oh, scary.
Yeah. Yeah. All the malware has to do is say, okay, now look at your phone and
Yeah.
Well, this
It's
was the initial problem with oh, the new Windows feature. I've forgotten its name now. The one recall. That was it. Um, so they were
Right.
storing the recall database, i.e., taking a screenshot of everything you do, including all the nefarious things you possibly don't want it to take a screenshot of. Um, Taking screenshots every few seconds, and then using an AI to go through those screenshots to make them easily searchable. That searchable index was sitting there on your Windows computer in plain text. So if a nefarious person was able to help you remote control your Windows device, one of the first folders they could go to was this place that had all your secrets very nicely presented in an XML or text form. So it was incredibly problematic from a security point of view. It was absolutely awful. Microsoft are backtracking a bit on that, and they have improved it quite a lot now, so that access to that database is only able to be done through biometrics now. But in the early days, that was pretty bad. And even then, it's still possible for someone to gain access to a Windows machine and grab one of these files and just squirrel it away to try and hack away at later. Because it's only a few K long. It's an index of what's been discovered through all your screenshots. It's almost as if Microsoft very helpfully injected a keylogger into every version of Windows.
Seriously,
yeah.
seriously, they
Seriously.
need to team up with the developers of CrowdStrike and make a really great app to manage.
They dropped the ball on this one.
Oh goodness. Well, the only
Uh,
the only other thing I'm going to mention real quick is messages. It's nice to see that messages is catching up to iOS a bit on the Mac. It's been a
Yeah.
long time coming. I don't remember
Yes.
if I included this in my notes to you guys or not. I have seen no word whether the ability to edit messages on the Mac is going to be there in Sequoia or not. It's not there now, and as
It
much as I kind of
it is.
poo-pooed it when it came out for iOS, I have come to rely upon it because there's always a stupid mistake and you want to fix it to avoid the embarrassment. But the ability to edit a message on the Mac just is not there. I can't do it.
You don't have it?
Nope.
I have it.
I just checked.
It let me I'll send you a message from my Mac
Anyway,
a live demo.
and
we'll do a live demo.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, there's
So I
I
can undo
saw that
send
there's
and edit.
other features coming like stickers, which I thought was in there already, but apparently there's a type of animated sticker or something that's coming. Formatting, I'm a little hit or miss on that. I mean, it's texting, it's not a word processor. I don't think I necessarily need formatting for my
Well,
text
you can
messages,
pull
but
things. Yeah.
it'll be great if it's in there. Um, the only other thing that's coming that it sounds kind of cool is send later. Maybe I'll use
Yeah. Send
that.
later is like
I have some thoughts on that
I
too. I mean,
use
if
that.
you're sending a message to somebody and they don't have their phone on Do Not Disturb and it's 2 in the morning, well, that's kind of on them, isn't it? So, no, I kid. But
Uh
send later could be good as well. So there are some interesting features coming to messages, and it'll be nice to see that rolling out to the Mac. Was there anything else, Eric, that you wanted to add before we wrapped up
um
our top five, our increasingly inappropriately named top five list of features
I
coming to Sequoia?
no, that I could think of. Yeah, I
Okay.
think I think everything's been covered.
Well, then I think it's time for a good old Mike rant and why Mike is
Oh,
not upgrading to Sequoia if things remain as is. Now, I've predicted this is coming for a while now, and I don't expect either of you are going to agree with me. And you're just going to have to let me get through this, and then we'll let you comment on it afterward. But Apple has been playing a game of frog in the pot for several years now, and we are the frogs. As Apple is slowly and methodically turning up the heat, we aren't recognizing how much they're taking away from us in the process. I mean, sure, the pot is nice and shiny and we can appreciate the lovely aroma of the liquid surrounding us, but I think many users are failing to see that unlike that poor frog in the analogy, who we can all hope was lucky enough to escape, we are the ones who are getting boiled as Apple continues to take more control away from the users until we're really running nothing more than a glorified iPad in macOS clothing. And Sequoia seems to be Apple's attempts at turning up the heat not one, but two notches, beginning with the thing that really got me going, the screen recording permission warnings. When early betas of macOS Sequoia were released and reports started pouring in that macOS would now seek the user's permission on a weekly basis whenever an app sought to enable screen recording, for things like remote access software, screencasting apps like ScreenFlow and iShowU, QuickTime, FaceTime, Zoom, pretty much any app that needs to share your screen at your request, mind you, and would now need you to reauthorize that app on a weekly basis. Well, when I heard that, I was, as you can tell, pretty incensed. Well, I later read that Apple has changed its plans for Sequoia based on user feedback to only ask on a monthly basis instead.
Oh, jeez.
Well, that's not good enough, Apple. I'm sorry. I'm realizing that Apple's nanny state for users of macOS was only getting worse, and getting worse much more quickly than I hoped it would. And the worst part of it all is that we can't turn it off. There is no power user switch. So we either have to accept that apps that we depend upon, like remote access software, which I use on all of my Macs, will stop working correctly once per month until or unless we can physically go to that computer with the prompt stuck on screen and give our blessing to the Apple gods, or we can not upgrade, which is admittedly a solution that has limited shelf life, or two, give in and just treat the Mac like one big old iPad with limited functionality and come to the realization that the Mac is no longer for power users and switch to another platform that understands that the power of a personal computer belongs squarely within the hands of those who use it. Now, that's not to say that I don't understand where this "it's not a bug, it's a feature" decision is coming from. There are absolutely situations in which it could be dangerous for someone, especially within a domestic abuse situation, if software is there that shouldn't be, that's monitoring their activities and was covertly installed without the user's knowledge. I get that. I understand that, and I appreciate that. And that someone would be warned that this software is running is a 100% good thing. For most users, though, I don't see the added security benefit of making us jump through hoops for software that we know is installed on our Macs. Once, okay, I get it. Twice a year, maybe. But monthly, that is a ridiculous burden to foist upon users, and I hope that Apple comes to their senses sooner than later. The second
I apologize.
thing...
I'll have to step out. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Eric's going to take off.
See you guys.
You are missing the rest of my rant, Eric.
I know, and I wanted to hear what it is. All right. Talk to you later. See you later, Darren.
All right.
Yeah, I know. Only half a rant. This is not right. All right. See you guys later.
See you later.
Cheers.
The second thing is taking away the ability to run apps not notarized by Apple or by the developer without first making a round trip to the security and privacy panel of system settings. Okay, this is harder to argue against when you take into account the number of malware authors who use the right click to and then open to their advantage, sometimes even stepping users through the process with helpful little diagrams. In fact, I was just reading this morning about a Cthulhu stealer macOS malware, admittedly distributed with pirated software, right? So we're talking about people who are downloading pirated versions of Clean My Mac or Grand Theft Auto or even Adobe Gen P, which is, according to the article itself, a tool that people are using to bypass Adobe's subscription model. So good on them for getting infected. This is their own fault, by the way. So if they're downloading fake apps and getting this malware on their system, the malware is stepping them through the process of right-clicking and choosing open to bypass this security
Yeah.
step.
Turning off protection. Yeah.
Turning off the protection. I get that. All right, I understand. But this new way of running apps that haven't been notarized, that haven't come from Apple or haven't come from the Mac App Store, are going to prevent power users from easily running apps that haven't been blessed by Apple's notarization process without adding it to a list of exemptions using privacy and security settings on a per app basis. Now, apparently, originally, you could go into the privacy and security and say, yes, I want this to happen, and then the right click open would work. Apple got rid of that. So they actually made it worse as the betas progressed. Now, there are going to be other ways around this because it is possible to self-notarize apps. So I really expect that there's going to be a rash of one-trick pony apps that allow you to drag and drop a non-notarized app into a
Oh God.
window, sign it with an ad hoc
Oh no.
certificate, and then you're going to be on your way,
Oh.
effectively bypassing these new rules of Sequoia. That's going to happen. There will be apps that do this. There are also ways to strip the quarantine attribute, and utilities already exist to help you do that too. And of course, you can disable Gatekeeper altogether, which may be what many power users end up doing, much to the dismay of Apple. The point is, this is just another step Apple is taking to annoy users and developers enough that eventually they're going to be able to say, see how much nicer it is now that we've locked down your Mac and we force you to come over here to the Mac App Store where we take 30% of every sale on top of the developer fees that we require for apps to appear, thereby avoiding all the frustration and lost user base because of our new rules? And then they'll say, oh, wait, did we say that out loud? Sorry, what we meant to say was, see how much more secure and how much more private you are by sticking with the Mac App Store. It's a pattern that Apple has been following. It's a pattern that Apple has been following for several releases now, each more locked down than the previous release. And it's not going to get any better anytime soon. But that's where my blue sky power user mode comes into play. Make power user mode something that's off by default, but give us the ability to turn it on through a terminal command within recovery. I don't care how we have to do it, but give us the ability to turn it on. Not unlike, say, the ability to enable reduced security through the Mac Startup Security utility. Simply add a checkbox that reads, disable all, and I mean all, privacy and security permission checks. Just give me that ability to check that box and disable it all, so I don't ever have to deal with something saying, would you like this to record with your microphone? Would you like this to have access to your camera? Would you like this to screen record? Would you like this? No, just stop prompting. Stop asking me. I don't want to know. Give me one switch that says, I understand this could be a problem. I take it upon myself to accept that I don't want you nagging me anymore, Apple. So I guess we can take comfort in knowing that Apple tried to spring these changes on us during the beta cycle of the initial release of Sequoia and not sneak it into, let's say, a point release, which they've done before. But without the ability to disable Apple's asinine and intrusive privacy controls entirely, which are a bit of an invasion of privacy themselves, now that I think about it, the macOS platform will only become another cog in Apple's services wheel. Apple's services wheel. I don't know why I couldn't say that. Another cog in Apple services wheel where they control how we use it and what we can do with it, and we end up with macOS Vista. Apple can only
Oh, you went there.
ride this privacy horse so far before that horse
Uh,
starts to look more and more like a sawhorse that Apple is sitting upon while tilting at windmills.
wow. Uh, there's an awful lot to unpack there.
Yes,
Oh,
there
wow. Where do
is.
I start?
Unpack away,
Oh,
Darren.
oh, absolutely. Well, I'm not sure where to start actually. Yeah, interesting where you went there with you did go there with uh, macOS Vista, which I
Yeah.
found particularly amusing. Yes, as you say, Microsoft did come a cropper of this um, over permissioning, shall we say, um, and they also had they had the same problem. They're trying to make their platform more secure, which
Mm-hmm.
is a good thing. Um, Making the user experience so awful that people hated the whole OS, um, which is a danger. You don't want your users absolutely hating you. that may, that makes people migrate away from you, really, or it can do. So what Microsoft did was to change the way permissions elevation worked. So, and I think that macOS could very easily implement something like that. Um, so you essentially you elevate once, and whatever you call from that elevated thing that you chose to elevate, i.e., give you um, a pro level user permissions, is already provided with the permission of the thing you've already elevated. So you elevate once, and then everything else is elevated as well,
Agreed. That's
which
that's how it's
makes
been.
things
That's
easier.
how it's been.
Well, that's what it's like in Windows, but the trouble is also in OSs like Windows that don't have this very, very extensive permission structure, is that they're not only open to be easier to do those power user things in a way, um, it's also open to be um, well ruined by nefarious types. It's very easy to go too far down the other road. So there's swings and roundabouts there. There's how open do you want to make it? If you make it completely open, able to do anything for any user, then chaos ensues. And if you go too far the other way, then people can't stand using the operating system. So it's a really tricky line to walk to keep things secure, but also make the OS, which is always Apple's approach, is to make their operating systems and their devices a delight to use, delightful, um, and you don't get that if you over permission. So I do think you have a point that although permissioning is extremely useful, and it means that macOS is usually very, very secure, and you can't do anything too dangerous. um, but the way permissioning is handled, especially for users that aren't terribly tech savvy, um, makes it very difficult for them to grant permissions to things, especially if they need to uh, be granting permissions on multiple times. You are right there, yeah. But I don't think it's going to be anywhere near as bad as you're possibly expecting it to be. It's difficult to remember all the things in your mega rant there. Almost, it's like I think there were three major points, and oh yes, the other one was not allowing people to just right-click on an unnotarized app and run it. I don't think that's a problem. I think that's it's too easy to run an unnotarized app for most users anyway, and putting that permission back into the settings app to grant is perfectly fine. But as you say, it needs to not be repeated very often, and you need to have a overall control to say, I've granted permission for this app to run in this way, and have that on a per user basis, which I think it is. I think that should be okay. And I don't see too much of a problem of getting rid of the right-click open to run an unnotarized app. One of the powers of apps, especially in the App Store, is the fact that almost everything is notarized. There's only a few things that aren't. So it's only on a very small number of applications that you have to do this sort of thing to run unnotarized packages. And I think the act of Apple making that not necessarily horribly tricky, but making it more difficult is actually a good thing. It does mean that you can't be strewn with lots of pretend unnotarized apps and apps being nefarious and pretending to do this, that, and the other, and pretending to be a different app because notarization doesn't exist. Because when you look at other platforms where notarization isn't a thing, it's absolute chaos. Any app can pretend to be anything else, and it's awful. So I like the fact that apps mainly are notarized on the app. On the Mac ecosystem, because it makes things really rather pleasant, and you can trust quite a few more things that you may do as a standard sort of way of using a computer in the world of Apple, because of that notarization. So I think notarization is a good thing.
I do agree with that. I think notarization is a good thing, but it's also very easily spoofed. It's not difficult at all to self-sign or self-notarize an app and then distribute that to somebody. You don't have to go through Apple's process. So
True, but if a developer did do that with their main app, they would potentially be excommunicated. Their developer rights as a developer to use developer tools and create apps to distribute in the first place would be revoked if they did anything nefarious with a self-signed notarized app. Apple will find out.
My point is, I don't even have a developer account, and I could self-notarize an app that I wanted to continue running, but Apple had revoked the ability to run on later versions of macOS, and that's network utility. So I was able to take the version of network utility from
the old one,
the old one,
from an old Mac, yeah.
It wouldn't run because it wasn't notarized, so I self-notarized it. I have no Apple developer account, and now I can run it, and I can give you a copy, and you can run it, which means that there's a big loophole in there somewhere. So if there's a loophole that large in the process of notarization, why the extra step? I'm not sure that it's necessarily making me more secure.
But if there was a problem found with that app that you passed on to me, for instance, that you self-notarized, then any associated data that you have with your any developer account that you may have would be associated with that. So,
but I don't have a developer account.
I
just use Terminal to notarize it.
Right.
It's
a tricky situation, isn't it? Yes, it's a tricky situation.
It is a tricky situation. Yeah. In fact, I might have even talked about how I did it on an episode of For macOS Only. I'll have to find the notes on that. But it was very simple. It was just a quick go to the terminal, run a quick command. It stripped it of the old notarization, the old certificate, and added a new one to it. And
Yeah.
I don't have a developer account. There's nothing it's linked to. So
Yeah. Well, luckily you don't try to make money through selling apps officially, because
well,
if you
no.
did, you would be affected.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to distribute it through the Mac App Store, and I have not. I sent it to one other person who needed network utility, and it was a good friend of mine. But other than that, I mean, yeah, no, I'm certainly not trying to do anything nefarious. I was just trying to get an app that's
Oh
incredibly
no,
useful
no.
working again.
Of course.
But the fact that it was so easy for me to do that is what gives me. Now, I do think that we are one step closer to not being able to run apps at all that aren't notarized. And that's my fear, is that open source
Potentially,
developers and
yeah.
other third party developers are going to be forced to go through this process, forced to buy into a developer account just to notarize apps so that they can run, when it's an expense that that developer, whether it's an individual or a nonprofit or what have you, shouldn't necessarily need to take. It's an expense they
Well,
shouldn't have
I
to
think
undergo.
I think people that are distributing apps for Macs should have developer accounts, and they should notarize their apps with that account. And I think that's quite sensible. I don't see a problem with almost, yeah, pretty much going down that road of forcing developers to do that. It does ensure that the only apps that will run are trusted through a notarization process that is linked to a real developer, even if it's not for profit. I mean, getting access to all the developer tools and becoming a developer, it only costs £99 a year. So even for non-profits, it's just something you could dredge up from petty cash and pay for. It's not
For the
too
larger
much of a
ones,
problem.
they're
Yeah,
they're
even a small. I mean, £99 a year isn't onerous as a charge to be able to make sure the apps that you distribute are trustworthy. I
mm.
think that's fine myself.
And yet I still, well, no, and I don't necessarily have an argument with the basic concept, but it is still something that many open source developers are not doing because of the cost. They're not making any money with
Yeah,
their app. They're simply distributing the app for the love of developing software for a platform that they love.
yeah.
And
But in order to
so
develop that app, they need to download the tools to develop it in the first place. They've already got an account to do the notarization from.
if they're using Apple's tools to develop the app,
Um, yes, some. It is possible to develop apps that don't use Apple's tools, but they tend to be weird, not very good.
all right, all right. Weird is the word of the week. Um, yes, okay. Well, anyway, that was my
That's
point.
it. You don't want to be too weird.
As I said, my main issue is with the new screen recording permissions. I think once is enough. I don't think, or at least give us a checkbox that says I understand. Check. Don't ask me about this app anymore.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's okay for power users, but yeah, you know what's going to happen. Somebody who's not very technical with computers, they'll be persuaded to click that button that they shouldn't be persuaded to click, and they'll have that little legalese checkbox to say, I agree to all the consequences of this, and they'll completely forget that they clicked on that agreement, and they'll just approve screen recording forever and be susceptible to all sorts of interesting things. So I can see why Apple want to lock this down a bit better.
Well, why did they download from a pirated website then?
Well, yes, exactly. They were brought that all on themselves. I did have a friend actually that was was aghast when I was so shocked when he said, I download my virus checker from a dodgy source, and it's like, well, do you realise that dodgy source is probably already infected with the viruses you're trying to protect yourself against.
Exactly. It's not doing a darn thing for them. It's running and saying, "Yep, you're clean," and
it's making things worse. Absolutely.
That's right.
It would have been better not to have downloaded anything at all.
Of all the apps you should not download pirated versions of,
yes,
antivirus apps
don't pirate your.
Are probably the ones you want to avoid.
And never pirate. That's it. Never pirate your OS, and never pirate third-party AV software. You are asking for trouble.
There are so many free antivirus apps out there that you can run. You don't have to download a paid pirated version. You just download one of the free ones. They're absolutely fine.
That's right, and I mean. That's probably a complete other show, actually. We've already done sort of some shows like this where we go into the details of why you may or may not need third-party AV protection on a Mac, especially because there's quite a few built-in nice little tools there sitting there in the background helping to protect you that people don't realize are there, but they're sitting there doing their job.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other show.
As I said at the beginning of the notarization part of it, I get it. I understand it. I understand why it's there. Just don't take it away. Don't take away the ability to run any app that I want to run of my own volition on my personal computer. I don't care what you do on the phone. That's not my primary computing platform. My primary computing platform is the Mac, and I need and want the ability to run any app that I want to run on it, regardless of whether you think I should or not, Apple. So don't take away the capability, but don't, that's that. But the screen recording, look, I use remote access software that requires screen recording permissions. And if every time I reboot that remote Mac, it's going to come up and say, you got to give permission. And I can't access that window to give permission remotely. What's the point? And
I think as a power user, you might be able to tell that remote machine if it's running headless, for instance. That's a different case altogether. I think when you're remote controlling somebody else's computer and asking them permission to allow you to do things to their machine, that's different to you wanting to remote control a headless computer that you own. I think there'll be a facility whereby you can set up that remote machine to give itself permissions on reboots if you did need to reboot.
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment, no. But we're still in beta.
It was weekly. They changed it to monthly, and that still is onerous. They need to rethink this whole process and not spring it on us partway through Sequoia's life cycle. They need to go back to how it is right now, and ask permission once and not do this monthly thing. It's annoying enough to have, such and such app has been tracking your location for so long. Do you want to Yes. That's my mileage tracking app. I told you I want it to have permission. Stop asking me. Same thing here. It's going to lead to the same click fatigue that people had with Vista and other versions of Windows, and people are going to stop paying attention, and they're going to just click yes.
It's a tricky line. It is a tricky line, as you say, but for instance, there's one permission that's very handy, like when you plug your phone into another unknown computer and you just want to charge it, and you get that every time you plug it in, it pop up and say, do you trust this device, yes or no? And I think that's a good thing, because often you'll just say no, and then that device has no chance of grabbing data from that phone or doing anything nefarious at all, because you've not trusted it. You've chosen specifically not to trust the device when you plug it in, which is a good thing.
Darren, why are you plugging your phone into unknown computers?
Well, It's just to charge my computer at work. So you'll
Don't you
pick
have
a
little power
cable and plug it
blocks?
into a USB. Well, it's just, yes, you can use a power block indeed, yes, but I tend to plug it into a computer that happens to be hanging around there, and normally they are trusted because they're my own machines. But that's the thing. It's like when somebody else out there in the world, and they're not particularly uh, uh, you know, not IT literate as such. What would I say? Not so good on the IT front. At least they get a prompt to say, are you sure you want to uh, trust this machine that you've never seen before?
Well,
It's good for most users, I think.
I think unfortunately we are at a point, and this is another show in and of itself. So let's save this conversation for the future. But we are at the point where too many people believe that this device sitting in front of them is a toaster. And they put their pieces of bread in it, they push down the plunger, and toast pops out. Whereas in reality, this is a very complex piece of machinery running
That's
complex
true.
software. And there's very much like a vehicle, whether it's a motorcycle or a car or a truck or whatever, there's a certain responsibility that comes with operating a complex piece of machinery. And part of it is
Yeah.
paying attention to what's happening on that piece of machinery. And
Yes.
there are certain rules like don't plug your phone into unknown computers. Do you know what I see all the time?
Yeah.
Can
Yeah.
can I borrow your phone? Sure. Here's my phone. No. Don't hand your phone to anyone. Don't hand your
Oh,
computer to anyone. Don't allow anyone to
quite
connect
right.
or use your devices unless they are using a guest account that's isolated from your primary account. Stop letting the grandkids play games on your computer. This is, give them their own account
Oh, yeah.
so that
Give
they
them their
can't
own
mess
account.
around with your
Yeah.
stuff. And then when there's weird third-party software installed, you have to pay somebody to fix it because you let the grandkids who are 8 play on your computer unsupervised. It's it is a
In your account, yes,
complex
which you should not do.
piece of machinery, and the respect for that complexity has been lost. I mean, I'm old enough, and you can tell by the gray hair, I'm old enough to remember, what the get off my, you said this at the beginning, get off my lawn,
Get off
kids.
my lawn.
I'm old enough to remember what we had to go through to get a computer to turn on, let alone perform the tasks that we wanted it to
Oh,
perform. And
yeah.
that complexity is still there, but it's hidden from us. And because it's hidden from us,
Yeah.
there's no thought put into what's actually happening behind the scenes. And unfortunately, there's not that there needs to be like formal schooling or anything, but there does need to be a certain amount of training or understanding to know what a password management app is, to know what a web browser is. There's still a large number of people that when you say web browser, they have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, yes. Do you mean
Because
that blue E?
the blue E or the multicolored circle or the orange fox or
That's it.
whatever it is they're using, but the basic terminology has been lost and it
Yeah.
hasn't changed. It's not any
No.
different than it was 10 years ago, but the understanding of what the basic terminology is has been lost. And part of that is basic security. We see this in every single article, including the article about this Cthulhu malware. Don't download from untrusted sources. Great.
Oh,
So when you
absolutely.
do a search to grab a copy of, um, well, don't be downloading Adobe Gen P, but when you do a search, download a copy of Clean My Mac, which is one of the examples. There's a large number of
Yeah.
people who don't understand how to read search results. If
Yeah.
when
Don't
you
steal it. Buy it.
Well, buy it. But are you right? So let's say someone wants to get Clean My Mac and they go to
Yeah.
Google or Brave or I mean not Brave, DuckDuckGo, and they type in Clean My Mac and some malware site comes up as the number one search result. That
Mm.
happens. The malware authors game, search results, SEO, they game search results to put their malware ahead of the legitimate software in the search results. Some even
Yeah.
go so far as to
Yeah.
purchase advertising on the search platforms in order to fool people into downloading their malware-ridden pieces of junk versus the actual software. So being able to understand how to read the search results and where the actual link is versus just blindly clicking the first item that pops up in the search results is huge. And there just are
Yes.
are not enough people who understand that. So a little bit more hand holding and training needs to happen with people who are, as you said, less IT savvy, so
Mm.
that they can help protect themselves and not depend upon those of us who've been doing this long enough to remember how difficult it was to fire up a computer in 1983. Um,
Well,
so
that's
that they
it. I
can
mean,
protect themselves and not have to call us.
yeah, I think the original aim, and there's some nice history with Apple on this anyway. Um, Steve Jobs' original aim was to try to democratize the computing experience, try to
Hmm.
make computers as easy to use as a toaster. So th- that it's not as if um, uh, this is a new thing in a way. It's like the aim overall from the very start has always been to try to make computing easier um, for especially for users that aren't tech savvy. Um, I think um, one of the interesting things about uh, what you said is yes, it's true. Computers are exceptionally complex devices, um, but one of the nice things about how macOS is designed is that complexity is hidden.
Hmm.
If you're a power user, you can delve as much as you like into the and go down the rabbit hole, and there's power beyond power down there in the dark depths. But if you're a non-tech savvy user, those complexities have been hidden away very, very well so that you can just use the device as if it's a toaster almost to get your computing done without having to worry about how do I use this incredibly complex device. So I think that's in a way that's an early design decision driven by Jobs himself back in the day to say we want to make computing easier for most people, and I think they've succeeded.
Yeah. And so maybe I should reword what I'm asking for. Maybe I'm not looking for a power user mode. Maybe I'm looking for a fry cooker mode versus toaster mode or something. Maybe
Yes,
that's yes. I want a checkbox that says yes, I understand the ramifications of clicking this checkbox.
yes.
Please let me do what I want to do. That's
But
what
as
I
you say,
want. And
you can run the terminal and you can delve into the power side, and you as a power user can alter things that most people don't have expressed to them because there is no UI to click on to change those settings. So
right.
some hidden settings are specifically hidden on purpose to make them only available to power users, and that's as it should be. That's good.
And we will end on that, Darren. Thanks. Yeah,
Excellent.
I'm sure we'll pick up this conversation in the future. But for now, let's get to our essential app this episode.
Uh-oh.
In January we did the essential apps episode, and we had so many apps that we wanted to talk about that we said let's do a new essential app every week for the rest of the year. And we've had a number of great essential apps brought on the show, and I have one I want to bring up. And as I said when we started recording, I don't know if this is really essential as much as it is fun. And it's something I came across the other week and kind of enjoy it. And I don't know if you've heard of this, Darren, but it's called BananaBin. Now, have you
Oh
heard of
no, never heard
BananaBin?
of that one. No, not at all.
BananaBin is perhaps one of the most useless essential apps that we will have ever brought up on the show, but it is just so much fun that I wanted to bring it up and mention it to people. BananaBin is a creepily realistic app that adds flies to your trash bin,
Oh,
prompting
trash
you
can. Yes. Oh,
to
yes.
empty it regularly. Now, not only do the
Quite
flies
right.
hover around the bin, they actually fly around it, and they're very, very realistic looking. Not only do they fly around it, but they also crawl around the surface of the bin too. And the
Wow.
realism of it is just crazy. It's bananabin.app. If you go to bananabin.app, you can check it out and you can see an example of of what it looks like. But the neat thing about it is you can actually as your trash can or trash bin fills up, the flies start appearing around the trash can, and you can configure the threshold at which they start to appear. And I looked it up. You can configure it as janitor mode, the recycler, or a garbage hoarder. And the differences there are 10 megabytes, 1 gigabyte, or 10 gigabytes. And
Wow.
so depending on the threshold that you set, that's when the flies start to appear, and they start to appear in more and more frequency as you add stuff to the trash.
Wow.
It's just so
I think
crazy.
if you have 10 gigabytes worth of trash, you have
You
bigger
you
problems.
got bigger problems. But the interesting thing is, as the threshold is triggered, so as you get to I'm using some of their terminology here, but as you get to 10 megabytes or 1 gigabyte or what have you, you start to hear the buzzing of the flies too.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So
That's very clever. I like it.
you know, you're going to be like swinging your hands around trying to figure out where these flies are that are around the room. And then more flies are added every hour, which is, yeah. Now, the other thing about, you can clear them away. You can clear them away by just waving your mouse over the trash can. Just wave your mouse over the trash
Wow.
can, and that scares away the flies. But then
Oh
if you
my God,
don't
that's
empty
clever.
it, they come back again. Now, here's the
That's
best thing
brilliant.
about it. So it, if you've ever had bananas sitting out on the counter, you know they tend to attract little gnats and stuff, fruit flies and
Yeah,
whatnot.
fruit,
If you
fruit flies.
let them get too ripe, they'll start to attract bugs that you don't want them to attract, especially in summer. Well, that's why it's called banana bin, right?
Yeah.
And the best thing about it is it's only $5. So if you are the type of person who doesn't regularly empty your trash, and you don't have the finder set up to automatically empty it on a schedule, which you can do, you know, but if you need that little reminder that your trash is getting full and maybe it's time to empty it, Banana Bin might be the app that you want. So that's my essential
I
app for
think that's a
this
brilliant
week.
idea. I think that's
Yeah,
really good, actually.
I thought it was
Something you
pretty
think you
clever.
would never want, but you probably do.
That's
I'd
right.
also like to see, I'd also like to see something similar for the Downloads app. Sorry, the Downloads folder,
Yeah.
because the number of people I've been to see that have a jam-packed Downloads folder for with years worth of content for old apps that they should never reinstall, because they should really be downloading the latest version from the website and not using the one that's sitting there in their Downloads app. Um, Sorry, I keep on saying app, the Downloads folder. Yes, I think this app would be brilliant to also be able to have flies around the Downloads folder, which is just sitting there molding away with loads and loads of files that should never be in there.
I don't know anyone, Mike says, looking up at the ceiling, who does that. No, I
No, who
do. I
does
do.
that?
I have years worth of stuff in my downloads folder. And I will admit it did rescue me the
Wow.
other day. I was looking for an older version of a plugin for a website, and I found it in there because I had multiple versions of it in there, and the version I needed was there. So it did save me in that instance. And I do
Uh,
tend to. I have an archive of as a temporary installation. Let me backtrack that. That's not normal. That's not that's not safe practice. But it saved me because I needed the old version installed so I could upgrade to the new version. I didn't. It was a whole thing. So having the old version
Wow.
that was licensed and I could put in there and then purchase the upgrade license, it was a whole thing. But it did save me by having that old version in there. And I do tend to keep an archive of older milestone versions of apps like LibreOffice and Firefox and Thunderbird and things like that, especially the extended service release versions of it, because I do occasionally come across an older installation of Windows or macOS or what have you, and they need a newer version than what they have, and I've got it in my archive. So I do tend to do that, but I keep that archive
Oh
on a
yeah,
separate
yeah.
disk, not on the
But
computer.
exactly, an archive is separate to your downloads folder,
Yeah,
or it should be.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And with that said, Darren, that's going to do it for this episode of For Mac Guys Only. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Remember, I do love to get your letters, so if you have any comments about the show, a tip to share, or a software or hardware problem with your Mac, you can leave your thoughts in this week's show notes found at formaceyeesonly.com, or you can drop me a line, Mike at formaceyeesonly.com. And be sure to subscribe to the show's YouTube channel at youtube.com/FMEOTV and click that little notification bell so you can find out when we're going live. You can join the chat room and you can catch all the behind the scenes stuff that doesn't make the final cut of the show. Darren, what's the best way for folks to get a hold of you if they want to reach out and take your side in my argument against screen recording permissions?
Well, I think that would be awesome if we did get feedback that it was sent through yourself to come on to me, and you would pass that on. That would probably be the best thing. Yeah.
That is fantastic. And Eric did have to leave us earlier, but Eric can be reached at eric@formaceyeesonly.com. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. Thanks to Eric and Darren for joining me this episode. Stay subscribed, and we'll talk to you next time.